But when you actually get out in the open and you want to grow lots and lots of grass and no weeds, the reality is that they don't compete with each other once the soil's sorted out. So the weed has a particular profile that it requires to grow. And like the research says, there's 2,000 seeds per square metre in your soil.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there.
Unutilized.
Totally. And so if you get a change in the weather or different things or a climatic event, and all of a sudden things change. Like, like docks. We had a patch where the cows all trundled into the corner and there was no docks. And then all of a sudden there was docks because they'd trampled it so hard. Well, what was interesting about it, in our pasture, next time I let them in, the docks were this high, they chewed them all to the ground. So they were tasty docks. The docks are gone. So they do a job and they move on. So there's a lot to do with conditions as well as the soil fertility.
Well, let's go through each of these one by one.
Yeah.
If number one's soil, is there anything else about that condition on the list that you need to cover off?
Okay, like the raw state of soil determines a lot of what weeds will grow. Like in our volcanic soils, where we are in Waihi, if you open it up in its raw state, you've got gorse.
Okay.
You just got gorse and gorse again. That's the predominant process that comes in. Now, if you change that slightly, then the thistles come and then the blackberries come. And so that's the natural state of our big origins in our soil, in our volcanic soil. So you go to different soils, you go to heavier clays out in the Hauraki Plains and you get buttercup. Heavier, stickier soils, anaerobic, they go and the buttercups come, pennyroyal and that. So each one of them sort of is a little bit predetermined by the soil type to start with and then how you farm it.
Okay. Then let's cover off mineralogy.
Well, that's basically it. Like those heavy marine clays, they're high in nutrient and you end up getting weeds from compacting it and destroying part of the soil structure and some of the mineralogy, like the aluminium comes into play and the silicon disappears and these weeds turn up. In our soils in the volcanics, you can't put superphosphate on. If you want to grow weeds, put superphosphate on, but if you don't, you can't put it on.
I bet that's a mistake a lot of people have made.
Yeah, well, all of our country was done. I mean, our farm, original farm up Woodland Road was a ballot block. And the first thing they did was get the super on. And it was a slightly different product at the time, but yeah, it's part of it.
So what's meant then by biology?
Well, this is where you got to set the whole soil thing up. You get the soil, so you got your mineralogy. So if you start to set the soil mineralogy up, then you got to start to bring the biology, the fungal species and the cyanobacteria, which proliferate in the soil once there's enough mineralogy, the right forms of mineralogy. They bring the aeration, which is the next part in the whole process. The aeration comes in. Then we get pasture species change and then the grazing patterns. So we're looking at bringing the animals in, grazing them, only 1 or 2 days on a piece of ground and gone. And so the soil gets to respond to that, the plants respond, and this doesn't suit the weeds either. So you can actually have sort of like a mild dose of, say, Californian thistle as you're in changeover, and you start to do this process in grazing, and all of a sudden, it's gone. It helps the process. Climate certainly has part to play in that because, if you get an absolute deluge and it gets wet all the time. And so like this, this is our farm in Waihi at the moment. And when we had 3 years ago,
to clarify, if you're looking at this and you're not listening on a podcast, but you got the video, the backdrop of that image is your farm.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And what happened is like we can see, I can see around the boundaries, what happened when we had, was it 2022, 23? We had 3.5 meters of rain in a year, and a fair chunk of that came in the wintertime. This is West Coast material of the South Island.
That's a lot of rain.
It was horrendous.
Yeah.
And God, we made some messes. And I should have taken some photos of it, but we made some horrendous messes with the stock, just not being able to get them off in time or whatever, just trying to stop the animals doing damage. But what happened when our soils were in good order? Come springtime, we didn't spread any grass. I mean, it all just reverted and came back up again. Beautiful red clover and white clover. So the soil was in good enough shape to regenerate itself. But everywhere I looked around us, the farms all had willigweed, buttercup, and these are all a symptom of anaerobic soils, which with bad mineralogy. And so like they really expressed it. I remember talking to one neighbour over the back and he was topping the paddock and I was just like, it was 70% willowweed. It was just horrendous. And I go, okay. I know we made some messes and he didn't seem to make as many messes as we did, but the soil and the weather had brought these types of plant. So if you fix the soil, you can handle a lot better climatic conditions.
Okay, and then you write all of the above. Because you've really got to see it all in concert with each other, right?
Absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. It's like if you get the soil, you get the mineralogy right, you bring the biology in, it brings the aeration, you graze it right. When the climate is shit, you still got a fairly good, you're still standing in a good place. You get some damage, like I've had a few places there where the docks just grew up, and it didn't concern me one little bit. Other people were talking about spraying them, and I'm like, can you just put the cows and they ate the whole lot. In fact, they went to the docks first.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. I remember Paul standing in the middle of this patch going, oh, look at the mess. And I laughed and I let the cows, the steers through. These are big steers. They were about 600 kilos and they all ran straight over. And she's standing in the middle of them going,